My mother wouldn't quit. A mother's tears and God's mercy. There are some things only a mother understands. She can look into the eyes of her child and see pain nobody else notices. She can hear anger in his voice and somehow hear the hurt underneath it. She can watch everybody else walk away and still see the little boy she once held in her arms. This is a story about that kind of love. The kind of love that stays when staying hurts. The kind that prays when praying doesn't seem to be working. The kind that keeps believing when everybody else has already given up. This is the story of Shanice and her son Jamal. A story about a mother's tears, a son's darkness, and the mercy of God. And somewhere inside their story is an ancient story told thousands of years ago about another mother who wouldn't quit. East Side Detroit. A place where beautiful people live behind doors reinforced by deadbolts, where mothers learn the difference between fireworks and gunshots, where abandoned houses sometimes stand next door to homes filled with families still fighting to make it. But don't misunderstand Detroit. There is pain here, but there is pride here too. There is struggle, but there is strength. And on one ordinary street on the east side lived a woman named Shanice, 46 years old, worked hard, loved harder. And every morning before she left the house, Shanice did the same thing. She prayed, not because life had been easy, but because it hadn't. And lately, almost every prayer had the same name in it, Jamal, her baby. Jamal was 24, 6 feet tall now, a grown man. But when Shanice looked at him, sometimes she could still see the 7-year-old boy who used to fall asleep on her couch with his head in her lap. That boy seemed so far away now. Something had changed. Jamal was angry, not the kind of anger that comes and goes. This anger lived with him. It woke up with him, walked the streets with him, went to bed with him. And when the anger became too much, Jamal found something that made him stop feeling. At first, it was just something to take the edge off, then something to help him sleep, then something to help him forget. Before long, Jamal wasn't using drugs anymore. The drugs were using Jamal, the darkness. He stopped answering his mother's calls, stopped coming home some nights, stopped laughing, stopped caring how he looked, stopped caring who he hurt, and the worst part was, he stopped caring about himself. Shanice watched her son disappearing right in front of her. She tried talking, she tried yelling, she tried begging, she tried threatening, she tried tough love, she tried soft love, she tried giving him space, she tried pulling him close. Nothing seemed to work. Friends told her, "Girl, he's grown, you've got to let him go." Family told her, "You can't save somebody who doesn't want to be saved." Even Jamal told her, "Ma, leave me alone." But there was something inside Shanice that wouldn't let her do it. Because everybody else saw a 24-year-old addict, Shanice saw her son the night. Then came the night she almost lost him. It was 2:17 in the morning when Shanice's phone rang. Jamal had been found barely conscious. She didn't remember putting on her shoes, didn't remember grabbing her keys. She only remembered driving through those dark Detroit streets saying the same words over and over. "Jesus, please. Jesus, please. Jesus, please." When she finally saw her son, he looked broken, so small beneath those hospital sheets. Shanice sat beside him and took his hand, the same hand she held when he learned to cross the street, the same hand she held on his first day of school. Now that hand was cold in hers, and Shanice cried. Not pretty tears, not quiet tears, a mother's tears, tears that came from somewhere words couldn't reach. "God, that's my baby up, please. Don't let me lose my baby." Silence. Jamal survived. But survival wasn't deliverance. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. There were treatment programs, relapses, promises, broken promises, apologies, arguments, hope, then disappointment. And Shanice kept praying, but heaven seemed quiet. That's something people don't always tell you about faith. Sometimes you pray, and nothing happens. You pray again, and things get worse. You watch other people's children turn their lives around. You hear somebody testify about their miracle, and you're happy for them. But somewhere inside you're asking, "God, what about mine?" Shanice had reached that place. She believed God could do it. She just didn't understand why he hadn't. The dog. Every evening Shanice walked King, the old pit bull Jamal had begged her for when he was 14. King still slept outside Jamal's bedroom door whenever Jamal wasn't home. One evening Shanice sat on the front steps with King lying at her feet. She hadn't eaten much that day. She hadn't slept much that week. And she whispered, "Lord, I don't know what else to say." A tear rolled down her face. "If there's any mercy left for this family, I'll take whatever you give me." King raised his head and rested it against her knee. And something about that moment stayed with her. A dog, waiting faithfully near the feet of the one he trusted, not demanding the whole table, just staying close. The stranger. The next afternoon, Shanice walked King farther than usual. Several blocks from home, she noticed a man sitting alone. Dark skin, long locks falling across his shoulders, simple clothes. Nothing about him demanded attention. And yet something about him made Shanice stop. King stopped too. The man looked at her, not at her clothes, not at her tired eyes, not at the neighborhood, at her, like he already knew. "You've been carrying something heavy," he said. Shanice almost laughed. "You don't know the half." The man looked down at King, then back at her. "Your son?" Shanice froze. "How do you know I have a son?" He didn't answer, and for reasons Shanice couldn't explain. She sat down. The cry. Everything came out. The addiction, the anger, the relapses, the hospital, the night she searched for him, the morning she wondered whether he was still alive. Then Shanice said something she had never admitted aloud. "Maybe God doesn't answer me because of the things I've done." The man looked at her. "Is that what you believe?" She lowered her head. "Sometimes." There was silence. Then Shanice whispered, "But even if I don't deserve anything, my son needs help." King moved closer and sat near the man's feet. The man looked down at the dog. Then he said, "Sometimes the one who knows they cannot demand the table understands mercy better than the one already sitting at it." Shanice looked at him. Something about those words, something about the dog at his feet, something about this man felt familiar. "Momma wouldn't quit." "I don't need everything," Shanice said. "I just need enough grace to reach my child." The man looked at her and smiled for the first time in months. Shanice felt peace, not because Jamal was healed. He wasn't. Not because the addiction had disappeared. It hadn't. But because faith had returned to the place where fear had been living. Shanice stood up, wiped her tears, grabbed King's leash, and before she walked away, the man said, "Keep believing." She turned around, but the place where he had been sitting was empty. The fight. That night, Shanice prayed differently. She didn't beg God to prove himself. She didn't bargain. She didn't ask why. She simply said, "Lord, help my child. And until he can fight for himself, I'll fight for him." And she did. She drove Jamal to treatment. When he walked out, she prayed. When he relapsed, she prayed. When he cursed at her, she loved him. When he told her to leave, she refused to abandon him. She set boundaries. She stopped giving him money that could feed his addiction. She stopped covering for his behavior. But she never stopped loving him. Because love doesn't always say yes. Sometimes love says, "I won't help you destroy yourself, but I won't stop believing you can live." Jamal. One rainy Detroit morning, Jamal showed up at his mother's door, soaked, thin, exhausted. King began barking before Shanice reached the hallway. She opened the door. Jamal stood there trembling. "Ma." She didn't speak. "I need help." Shanice covered her mouth. Jamal started crying. "I'm tired, Ma." And Shanice pulled her son into her arms. Not because the battle was over. It wasn't. Recovery would take time. There would be counseling, treatment, hard conversations, accountability, good days, bad days. But something had happened that morning. Jamal had decided he wanted to live. The revelation. Later, Shanice opened her Bible. Matthew chapter 15. She read about a mother whose daughter was tormented, a mother who cried out to Jesus, a mother who encountered silence, a mother who had every reason to walk away, but wouldn't. Then Shanice reached the words, "Truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table." She stopped reading. Her eyes filled with tears. The dog, the feet, the crumbs, the stranger's words. And then she read Jesus' response. "O woman, great is thy faith, be it unto thee even as thou wilt." Shanice closed her Bible and wept. Conclusion. Years later, Jamal would tell people, "My mother couldn't cure my addiction. She couldn't fight every battle for me. She couldn't make my decisions. But when I couldn't see anything worth living for, my mother still saw something in me worth fighting for." And maybe that's what a mother's faith looks like. It doesn't mean she can fix everything. It doesn't mean every prayer is answered the way she wants. It doesn't mean love replaces treatment, counseling, accountability, or the choices her child must eventually make. It means when darkness tells her child there is no hope, Mama keeps a light burning. When everybody else only sees what he has become, Mama remembers who he can still be. And when she doesn't have enough strength for tomorrow, she asks God for enough mercy for today. Because sometimes faith isn't shouting. Sometimes faith is crying. Sometimes faith is sitting beside a hospital bed at 2 a.m. Sometimes faith is saying no when enabling would be easier. Sometimes faith is loving somebody who has forgotten how to love themselves. And sometimes faith looks like a tired mother standing before Jesus with tears running down her face, saying, Lord, I don't need the whole table. Just give me enough mercy to reach my child. This is the story of Shanice. This is the story of Jamal. This is the story of a mother who wouldn't quit, a mother's tears and God's mercy.